Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 365 of Super Switch Headz, the premier Nintendo podcast on all of the internet. That's right. If you listen to one episode a day over the course of an entire year, you will have new episodes of Switch Headz every single day. That's insane. My name is David Howe. I am your host, and this week we are joined by a very special guest returning to the show. Please welcome the one and only Cina Saffary. How's it going, Cina?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me.
Of course. I'm very glad to have you on, Cina. We are going to be talking all about the newest multiplayer craze game that is out right now, Big Walk, a very Australian game for a very Australian populace. We played through the game in its entirety. We have 100%ed the game. That's right. So we are going to be giving our basically review of this game, our non-spoiler thoughts in the first half of the main topic, and then in the second half of the main topic, we are going to be doing a full spoiler discussion of Big Walk. Very excited to go over this with you, but if you are worried, listener, about spoiler sections, we will timestamp all the segments of the main topic there, so you can just listen to the non-spoiler section if you have not yet beaten the game. But please return after you beat the game, because there is a lot to talk about, including the game's ending, some post-game content, and more. We'll be getting into all of that in the main topic. Before that, we have lots of news and rumors to get through this week. There has been a Zelda Anniversary Switch 2 that has leaked, indicating, I would think, that there is a Zelda Direct of some nature incoming. Hopefully that happens soon. Nintendo is giving out physical cards to people who beat the DK challenge on Switch 2. Lots of Pokemon storage news. Pokemon Bank will be shutting down early next year, and much, much more. But before we get into all that, how are you doing, Cina? It's good to see you. I feel like I've been seeing a lot of you recently, just as a ant-type creature. How are you in the real world?
I'm pretty good, pretty chill. Just hanging out, playing a lot of Big Walk lately.
Yeah, we were playing Big Walk like it was our job. It was, I will say it's a lot easier to schedule 2 people playing Big Walk than it is to schedule 9 people playing Big Walk.
Sure.
So, yeah, absolutely. Glad to hear it. You seem pretty chill otherwise. You having a nice go at it outside of the game?
Yeah, I'm pretty stress-free these days.
Wow. Sounds great. You hear that, listener? Be like Cina. I've been okay. Thanks for asking. I'm about to leave the country. I'm basically, this episode that's coming out now will be the last episode for a couple weeks, because I am going to be in Spain for the majority of next week. So we're recording a little bit early. We're recording early on Sunday, August the 16th. So forgive me if we miss any news early this upcoming week. I will be back, I believe, at the end of August. So we'll have new episodes for you then following that trip. Very excited to go on this vacation, although I'm a little stressed out because I've not done any prep whatsoever. I've just been like basically doing all the work I need to do, like that is due during that time when I'm gone, and also playing Big Walk, which has been eating into quite a bit of my time as well.
Yeah, I feel partly responsible for hounding you into playing.
Absolutely, yeah. If you're ever trying to be super chill, be like Cina. If you're ever trying to peer pressure your friends, also be like Cina. Lots of lessons to be learned here. But yeah, we'll see how it all goes. I got a little bit of sun the other day too. Shout outs to Jeremy. I went to his birthday party, and I am hoping that the sunburn is not one that kills me. Anyway, we are going to move on real quick before we get into the news to a bit of shout outs from last week's episode, because we had quite a bit here. Over on the Discord, DCD said, "I wish I could have joined that pod to talk about how much I despise the Beatles. Don't ban me." You are banned, DCD. Over on YouTube, Drew Musel said, "Super interesting to hear McLean's story about getting into the games business. Great guest. Laughed out loud when he talked about how he needed to pitch his ideas as a problem to solve for game developers." That is very true. Oh yeah, if I didn't say, also last week we did an episode on Beatles Rock Band with McLean Deemer, who was a developer on the game and a composer in the industry. Great talk. We also had over from TBR BCR, amazing interview with Love from the Rarities team. And that is actually the group that is doing custom DLC for the Beatles Rock Band that has a flourishing online community of people filling out all the songs that never got released in Beatles Rock Band for people that have the emulated version of the game. So very cool to see them pop in the shout outs there. Very glad to have you in there. Avonrise on YouTube said, Have to admit, I can't speak much about the Beatles in general, let alone Rock Band. As a Brit, I guess I should have some kind of opinion. What I do want to say, though, is McLean has been bringing magic to a game I've loved for a long time now, Guild Wars 2, and hearing him be able to stretch his legs a little and compose for other games has been a joy. So thank you very much for that comment as well. Super fun episode. I love dev interview episodes and people in the industry coming on in general. So thank you very much to McLean for joining. Definitely check that out if you have not yet. And if you would like to be shouted out this week, listener, please drop us a line. The best place to do that is in the comments of the YouTube version of this podcast. That's right. We do a video version every single week, so you can look at me and the very handsome Cina on this week's episode over on YouTube. We're also doing video podcasts on Spotify as well. So if you'd like, you can check us out over there. Leave us a review or a comment on Spotify, review on iTunes or Apple Podcasts. And then over on YouTube, give us a like and a subscribe. Share the show with a friend, share it around somewhere. Really helps out with the algorithm. And but I think with all that out of the way, I'm ready to get into the news, Cina. Are you ready to get this show on the road?
Let's do it.
Let's freaking go, man. Okay, we are going to start with the DK Challenge that has been going for the last few months. You may remember the DK Challenge is a Nintendo Switch Online exclusive mode, I guess. It's kind of like Nintendo's achievement system in a way. Basically, it utilizes Nintendo Switch Online, Nintendo Classics to give you a bunch of like levels from classic Donkey Kong Country games, and you can play through those to get virtual cards, which are kind of like achievements. And then there's also the DK Bonanza portion of the DK Challenge, where that is truly like achievements, where you go and you beat certain challenges in a certain amount of time in game, and then a little notification will pop up saying that you've gotten the achievement for this thing. Everybody was just playing this thinking it was just a fun little thing that Nintendo added, and then like a week ago or maybe a few days ago, Nintendo was like, oh, by the way, everybody who did these actually gets physical versions of the cards as well if you pay for shipping in the My Nintendo store. So of course, now I'm like, oh shit, I actually have to do this now because those cards are really spiffy and have really good art on them. And I will say I have been doing it a little bit as of last night. I sat down and tried to do as many as possible. And damn it, these DK Bonanza challenges are no joke. They are truly difficult. I was banging my head against the controller several times, almost literally last night, trying to do some of these. And I know the last challenge is like beat the like final challenge of the game with no power-ups whatsoever, which is insane. So I feel like most people are going to be spending the majority of their time on that. But this is pretty cool. I know, Cina, you do not have a Switch 2 yet, but what do you think of this new thing Nintendo's trying out with like challenges? Do you think this is a cool idea? And are you jealous that some people will be getting the physical collector cards that you will not be able to?
I wouldn't necessarily say I'm jealous. Right. I do like this idea of like more competitive sort of do these little challenges. Like I played the NES Remix Nintendo World Championships on Switch a bit, and it was fun. And so I imagine that these Donkey Kong Country challenges and I guess the Bonanza challenges are somewhat reminiscent of that sort of
kind of. It's like the classic ones were a bit disappointing. And so I wrote off the whole thing a while ago because the classic ones are just like, beat this level from Donkey Kong Country. And it's like, okay, well, I've beaten these a million times. It's not like get X number of bananas in DK. Like, I don't think the game like tracks that at all. It's just kind of saying if you've beaten it or not. But it's the DK Bonanza ones that are like looking more specifically at individual things. I guess they can kind of just go in and add that programming into the game with an update to like speak to this app or whatever. But
that's cool.
Yeah, I wish it was a little bit more bespoke, I suppose, like you're saying with the classic games. But
well, I just like to see Nintendo trying a little harder.
Yeah,
in this sort of realm.
Yeah, doing something new, doing something different. It's a little clunky, but it's also clearly done with love. Like each one of these has an example video on like how to best beat them, especially for the harder ones in Bonanza. It's like kind of showcasing ways you can kind of break the physics of the game in order to do stuff quickly. So it's kind of cool to see the developers having fun with it. And it's also the first time I've picked up Bonanza since I rolled credits on it pretty much a while ago. So it's been a crash course in me relearning how to play that game because it does have a very strange control scheme that I was not used to after playing a bunch of other games, particularly Big Walk. I kept trying to click in the stick to run, and that's just not how that game works. But anyway, really cool stuff. Basically, you have until September 1st in order to complete this challenge and get the special cards in the mail. I think they announced who made it in October. So
what's the art on the cards?
Oh, it's like different sprites. It'll be just different key art and whatnot for each of the characters, but they've got it going all the way from, Donkey Kong Game Boy all the way to, DK Land and Donkey Kong Country, and then all the way to Bonanza. The new retro games are not included in this. I think they wanted to minimize the actual amount of games you have to buy for this challenge to be as little as possible, and then the rest of them are all kind of freebies within it. So, but really cool stuff, and I hope to be able to complete that. I'm going to be crunching whenever I get back from Spain because I don't know how much of this I'm going to be able to do while abroad. But we'll move on to our next bit of news, and that is about Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave. Not a ton to say here, but there are previews out now, final previews from different publications that have had hands-on with the game for, I think, a couple of hours each. They were all flown out to these kind of specific Nintendo locations where they do these previews, and pretty much everything that I'm hearing from everybody is that this is a dense game. I think everybody was pretty much expecting that. Three Houses was also a very dense game, and this seems to be even denser than that. And I think the thing that I'm hearing most is that the kind of deliberate pacing of Three Houses is kind of not found here. It seems like it's a lot more action-packed, but it does seem that there is a ton of game, and that's a lot of hub worlds, different branching pathways story-wise, teasers about what's upcoming in the story, but it does seem that if you are a Fire Emblem fan, this is going to be one to look out for. I don't know how much I'm going to be able to realistically put into this game, given how dense it is. I have quite a bit of a backlog, but it does look spectacular for Fire Emblem fans and for fans of just dense story-driven RPGs in general. What's your history with Fire Emblem, Cina? Are you excited for this at all?
I have yet to really play a Fire Emblem game. I played a little tiny bit of Three Houses, but it didn't really sink its teeth into me, and then I fell off a bit just because I was like kind of intimidated by just the breadth of that game.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I've always loved Advance Wars games, and so like Fire Emblem seemed like a good next step. I don't know if that is true or not, but
yeah. I mean, they're turn-based strategy games, I suppose.
Yeah,
so it's totally different vibe, and they're intelligent systems games, obviously. But yeah, I think if you want to get into Fire Emblem, I still think probably the best way to get into it is through Awakening for the 3DS. I think that was like the first one that really took off, and it's the first game sort of in this new style. If you have a modded 3DS, that's a great way to get into the series. And then if you are into that game, then it's like you've got a whole world ahead of you. And if you are not into that game, great. You gave it an old college try, that would be my opinion there. But yeah, either way, this game is looking quite intense and intimidating. But I will be sure to be giving more information about this game whenever it comes out. We will move on, though, to our next bit of news. And this is about a leak that has happened from Nintendo. Some retailers that showcase a Nintendo Switch 2 special edition for the Legend of Zelda that is coming out. I have a trailer up right now for the Switch OLED Zelda special edition. It does look pretty similar to this that will be coming to the Switch 2. Pretty exciting. I think there's also a pretty handsome looking Pro controller that also is Zelda themed. And something that was interesting about these is that you can also see on the system box itself the new Zelda 40th anniversary logo, which to me seems that there will be some sort of Zelda Direct incoming, or maybe in the usual September Direct that we get from Nintendo, there will be a nice chunky Zelda 40th anniversary section, because we've been getting tons of news about casting from the Zelda movie. So I think it's about time that we see a teaser of some sort for that, and some official cast announcements from Nintendo themselves. And I think also, we'll get the reveal of this console, and then potentially some other Zelda games that will be coming this year. It'd be really cool to see. But Cina, you do not have a Switch 2 yet. This maybe seems like a pretty good way to get one. What do you think about this system, and are you excited for Zelda's 40th anniversary?
Well, I'm definitely excited for Ocarina of Time when that comes out.
Yeah.
But I will not be getting this Zelda Switch 2. I'm holding out for an OLED.
Really?
Whenever it drops.
So you're not going to be playing Ocarina of Time when it drops?
Unless I just can't stand not playing it. But
Yeah.
I'm going to try to be a good boy and hold out.
Okay. Well,
my reasoning is that I've always been like, I always get like the first, like I get consoles at launch and stuff. And then the revisions, the like better upgrades, the better battery, the everything better kind of comes out a couple of years in. And then I'm always like kind of sad.
Well, I'll tell you this much. I know that Nintendo has been doing screen revisions in the background with the European Switch 2 that is coming out soon. They have a new screen distributor. It's not OLED, but it apparently, we don't know this, but it very well could be solving some of the ghosting issue that I think people have been having with their launch Switches. And then also it should have a replaceable battery as well, because I imagine they're only really wanting to make one SKU going forward of this. I don't think that they want to do a European version and an American version for this. So I would not be surprised if this is at least a little bit upgraded compared to the launch Switch. And then also just, again, as a heads up, another September 1st deadline. The price does go up on the Switch 2 starting in September. Here in the States, goes up $50. And I would not be surprised if that price goes up once again sometime in the next year, because as we're hearing, the RAM and storage crisis is not going away anytime soon. I don't know if you've been hearing the same thing.
Yeah, prices of everything are crazy, especially like storage and hard drives. I'm dying.
Absolutely. Well, you can buy my Switch 2 from me, my shitty Switch 2, whenever I get the new one. How's that sound? That's what you were assigned to do, right? So anyway, definitely be on the lookout. Do you think that we'll see anything more than Ocarina of Time and the movie for Zelda's 40th?
I think we will. I don't know what. Maybe finally getting the Twilight Princess and Wind Waker HD versions. Finally. I don't know, but who knows?
Yeah, I'm still holding out for Four Swords as a NSO exclusive. I think Four Swords Adventures would be pretty great on that system there. Also, I think it is high time for at least another reveal of a top-down Zelda. I think that we very well could see whatever Grezzo's working on next, or some other remake of some kind. I think Zelda 2 remake has been floated around for a really long time. If that's possible, I would love to see that. I think all signs are pointing to a September Direct for what it's worth. We did see the Metroid Ravenous ESRB link, so we know that has to be shown off, and that's probably coming this year if it's already been rated by the ESRB. So I would imagine there's still a bit in the last half of the year that we have yet to know that hopefully will be revealed in September, and some stuff for early next year as well. But
do you think that Nintendo will hit us with a Zelda 99?
I mean, I don't know. It'll be Zelda 40 if they did it, like Mario 35.
True,
you know what I mean? But I don't know what you would do. It'd just be like top down fighting, freaking Octoroks as they come in.
The idea came first, and then I was like, we'll figure it out, what that actually entails.
I think Zelda Maker is more likely than anything else, but that would be cool. But anyway, we'll move on from Zelda's 40th anniversary. Hopefully by the time I'm back from my trip, we have a lot more information about Zelda's 40th anniversary, because I feel like any day now Nintendo could drop a big drop. And if they drop it, I swear to God, tomorrow or Tuesday, I'm going to lose my freaking mind. Anyway, we'll move on to our next bit of news, and this involves the nation of Indonesia. That's right. Nintendo is officially launching the Switch and Switch 2 in Indonesia. This is a new market for Nintendo, and Nintendo has been expanding throughout this region right now. As you may know, Nintendo has opened a Singaporean office recently. And so down there in that part of the world, Nintendo is rapidly expanding. We have talked at length about the Switch 1's sales and how it is really only about 4 million units away from beating the PS2 for all-time lifetime sales. I don't know that launching Switch 1 alongside Switch 2 in Indonesia is going to get them the 4 million units they need for the original Switch here. I don't know, other than, budget reasons, why too many people would buy a Switch 1 as opposed to a Switch 2, given that Switch 2 can play all the Switch 1 games. But if the rumors are true, it is likely that Nintendo will also be expanding into India sometime next year. And if that is the case, I can certainly see them hitting some of these sales milestones. One last thing about the Indonesian expansion here is that I do not think the eShop will be launching alongside these versions of the Switch and Switch 2 as of now. I guess there's still some governmental hurdles that they need to overcome in order to get digital sales going in the region. But there will be physical games, obviously, available around this time. So interesting to see. I like to see Nintendo expanding into more markets. It's kind of strange that they have not been for so long. But what do you think about this, Cina? You have any thoughts on Nintendo's expansion into the Pacific?
There's gold to be made in India and Indonesia, I'm sure. Whatever we got to do to pump those numbers up, baby.
Yeah. You're the Nintendo fanboy that is always rooting for their success. There are rupees to be made in India.
True.
I think we can say there's some kind of crossover that surely could happen there. But anyway, if you're an Indonesian Switch Headz fan, it is finally your time. We will move on to the next bit of news, and forgive me if some of this is a little bit convoluted because I do not know exactly how all of this works precisely. I have seen flowcharts on this topic, so I certainly know that it is complicated, but Pokemon Bank will be officially shutting down. We've known this for a while, that Pokemon Bank is on its way out, but it is now official. We have a date, February 25th, 2027 at 7 p.m. Pacific time. Pokemon Bank will no longer be able to transfer things out of it into Pokemon Home. And if you do not know what Pokemon Bank is, it was essentially a 3DS app that allowed you to move Pokemon from all these generations of Pokemon games over to the Pokemon Bank for you to collect. And then you've been able to move stuff from Bank to Home, Pokemon Home being the new storage system that is compatible with all the Switch games. But the cool thing about Bank was that, you know, you could move stuff over from like Pokemon Black and Pokemon Black 2, Pokemon White 2, and then you could also transfer stuff all the way going back to the original Game Boy games through a convoluted series of transfers over to Pokemon Black. And so then you could then move those over to Pokemon Home. So theoretically, you can play, you know, new Switch 2 Pokemon games with Pokemon that you've transferred all the way from the very first Pokemon Blue and Red for the Game Boy. So that's pretty cool that has been possible. But as we said, that will no longer be possible at the end of February. So definitely, if that is something that you have been invested in for a long time, now is the time to get your stuff transferred over. I do know that Pokemon Home has increased its storage capacity from 6,000 to 9,000 Pokemons that you can hold within the system. So that's interesting to see that they've done that. I guess because they know this is shutting down, they're trying to throw some people a bone, but these are paid services and subscription services in order to keep this going. So Nintendo's really figured out how to wring this one dry. But there's some other Pokemon news here. But before we get into any of that, what do you think about this crazy transfer system of getting Pokemon from different generations?
I fell off of Pokemon like during the first generation. Mm-hmm. So all of this ecosystem is like brand new and foreign to me. So I'm just imagining in my head like a traditional bank run type scenario where like everyone tries to get their Pokemon out and there's not enough Pokemon in the bank to actually give everyone their money at any given time. So absolutely be left stranded. But yeah.
Well, fortunately, Nintendo's given us about 6 months in order to get this done. So that is at least a nice bit of heads up for people to be able to transfer that stuff over. Interesting. I definitely, if I have the wherewithal while editing this, I'll try to throw up that flowchart of the way to get everything from one game to another because it is totally insane to look at. A couple other little bits of Pokemon news. Fire Red and Leaf Green are getting official Pokemon Home support in October. According to a leaker named Special Nick, who had previously gotten some Zelda Ocarina of Time remake rumors correct, releases of Emerald, Ruby, and Sapphire for the Game Boy Advance are also coming to the Switch following the Leaf Green and Fire Red games on the system. I would imagine these are also going to be $20 each, just like we saw before, with no NSO support or anything like that. These are usually released as bespoke apps. So if those were your Pokemon gens, then those are reported to be coming pretty soon. But is there any shot any of this is going to get you back into Pokemon, Cina? Does any of this sound fascinating to you, or does it just sound overwhelming?
Yeah, it's not going to get me back. Sorry.
Well, there's always Pal World, I suppose. Uh, but that is going to do it for the Pokemon news. We are going to move into our last bit of news here, and this just involves a bunch of crazy layoffs throughout the industry and non-Nintendo stuff. First of all, some story that I thought was pretty funny to me was that Bethesda worker union members over at the Rockville, Maryland location for Microsoft recently had a visit from some of the executives at Microsoft to their studio, and they definitely wanted their voices heard, that they were not happy about the thousands and thousands of people being laid off from Microsoft recently. The workers union put out tons of little red flags on the lawn to signify every single worker that was let go from the company, and a giant inflatable rat named Scabby to showcase their distaste for the decisions by Asha Sharma and other heads at Microsoft. So you love to see little acts of resistance like this. I know that this story was shared around quite a bit, and I think, the more that people are talking about this, the more people are kind of understanding workers' rights and the situation at hand there. It's certainly not like they can do much about it other than have their voices heard right now, but, at the very least, that's what they can do. Some other dystopian layoff news. There was a Saber Interactive dev who had recently come forward saying that she was fired from a game, which was, I believe, called Rideshare Stimulation or something like that. Really weird title. Rideshare Stimulator is what it was called. Anyway, apparently she was a writer on the game and then was let go midway through production and replaced with ChatGPT, according to this person. The CEO of Saber Interactive actually responded to this with a truly unhinged quote, basically being like, who is this person? I had to use Claude to look up who it was. And oh yeah, this person was fired because she was terrible and replaced with somebody else. But it probably would have been better if we used ChatGPT, and we did use AI. We were going to reveal it, but she leaked it and blah, 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 blah. And so there's just a whole shit show of things going out right now. This game certainly looks like AI slop. Apparently all the voices are using AI. So it really sucks, especially from Saber, because they've done some really interesting stuff previously. I believe the CEO has since walked back some of those statements that he made because it was really, really unhinged and really unprofessional as well to see. So that's crazy stuff. And then finally, I do want to say that there have been some layoffs over at Night School Studios, who were the developers of Oxenfree. Night School has been shut down by Netflix, and also Moonloot was another studio that was bought by Netflix. They've shut both of them down. I know that Netflix has said that they are still interested in gaming as an opportunity for them, but it does seem that every studio they buy, they eventually close. Oxenfree by Night School is a great game. It also had a sequel and a new game called Unhinged, which launched with Netflix. Critically acclaimed game. Not enough to save the studio. So all this stuff is still continuing. It's hard to talk about this every week, but I feel like it is our responsibility to do so. Cina, do you have any thoughts on any of these shutdown studios, any of the union response to Microsoft here?
What's there to say at this point, except for, damn, sucks to see. It's just all across all industries, it seems like, or most of them at this point.
Yeah.
Sucks.
I know lots of people that have worked in tech, yourself included, that have lost their jobs to AI. And it really sucks. And I've been seeing a lot of friends recently that being like, yeah, they're having us use Claude and it's making my work a lot faster. And it's like, okay, start writing a resume right now. Like basically, if you are in coding or programming and they are forcing you to use generative AI to help you code, every single person that I've known that has had to do that has eventually lost their job. So that is definitely something to look out for. It's really a shame to see. There's lots of AI coding and vibe coding going on in the kind of fan development scenes as well right now. We're kind of in this unprecedented era of like recompilations, games that have had their code sort of reverse engineered and put out. I've been downloading a few of those recently, but there are a lot of them that are coming out right now just day after day, because I think Claude has learned how to do decomps like really easily now and can do it for all these different systems. So you see, not only is this kind of potentially an ethical dilemma, maybe less so with like a fan project than it would be if it was like, replacing actual workers. But also you just see the games that use that kind of AI coding tend to not work very well, and they're not really QA tested, right? Because usually a human being will go in and test the code as they're writing it, right? Claude does not have the wherewithal to do that, but lots of interesting things coming up in the future as far as that is concerned. But I think that is going to do it for our news and rumors section, and we're going to talk about much more pleasant things in just a moment when Cina and I return to talk all about Big Walk, spoiler and unspoiler sections, right after this break. And we are back here with Cina Saffary to talk all about Big Walk, the game that is taking the internet by storm. This is a game that I think has like so much universal appeal. Like I have been showing this recently to some friends of mine who are not really super big hardcore gamers, and they're like, what the hell? I want to play that right now, right? I think that this game clearly has had quite a bit of appeal amongst gamers as well as non-gamers. And this is truly a phenomenal game. This is by House, the creators of Untitled Goose Game. And we played through this game pretty much start to finish, Cina. Had a bit of a playthrough with a few other people's, and we'll get to that in a second, but that seemed to fall through, and it ended up being played mostly by the two of us. I know this is a game that you can play between 2 and 12 players, and most of you probably know about this game at this point, but is there anything that you want to talk about as far as just your initial impressions of Big Walk and kind of the way that you felt overall having played through this game?
I mean, just want to start this off by saying I absolutely loved my time with this game.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of the, so when Nintendo showed this off in one of the Nintendo Directs, it immediately shot up to like my most anticipated like reason to get a Switch 2, to be honest. And when it came out, I was like kind of lamenting that I wouldn't be able to play it. And then I realized that there was also a Mac version and it supports crossplay, so I could get to play it. So I got it. And I'm so glad because this game rules.
Yeah, I very much enjoyed it. I also did not play it on Switch 2, although it is a Switch 2 game. It is a native game for Switch 2. And if you do not know, this game uses proximity chat. So the majority of the time you are on mic, although I do believe that if you do not have a mic, there is a text option where you can type out as well. But, you know, it uses a microphone. And so your friends that you're playing with can only hear you when they are in the relative same area as you as you're playing the game, which really adds to the immersion. And I think it's actually a really fun game in this way because this game is all about exploration. It kind of drops you on this big island and there's all these different puzzles to solve, very much in the style of like a Myst or Riven game. I know, Cina, you and I are both fans of the Cyan Myst series, and I definitely was getting some vibes of this as we were playing. It's kind of a cooperative Riven type game. Maybe the puzzles aren't, it actually feels a little bit more Myst to me than Riven, just in that Myst would like have puzzles for the sake of there being puzzles, where Riven, like everything was much more like built into the world and the lore, you know, the way that the puzzles were laid out. But that still having been said, I think that is part of its appeal as well, right? Having the proximity chat, only being able to hear each other when you're nearby, and then puzzles also purposefully not letting you be able to talk to your friends. So you have to utilize, you know, different hand movements and lots of this and, you know, going like this. Basically, I think the most fun thing about this game is kind of having to create a language with the people that you're playing with, right? And so I think that has been so much fun. Like you and I ended up just calling things different things, you know, like there's a big black obelisk in the game that we referred to as Mecha. What else was in there? There's the Riven Ball also at the end. What is it? Green wall,
green
tower, baubles, the little collectibles that you pick up. Some people have been calling them beans. Some people have been calling them eggs. We referred to them as baubles as we went through. And it's been funny, like talking to other people about their playthroughs. Everybody has a different name for all this stuff, right? I think I saw some people refer to the baubles as donkuses, which I also liked quite a bit. But what were some of your thoughts as we're here in the non-spoiler section, obviously, about like kind of the mechanics of this game and some of the ways that proximity chat is used?
Yeah, you mentioned that this game is like kind of based around exploration. I agree, but I think I would frame it more as based around like collaboration and communication as like the kind of the primary pillars of like what makes this game tick. Because all of the puzzles you can't solve them on your own. It like requires at least one other person to do a thing with you.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them are based around like you said, developing some sort of like shared language that isn't necessarily spoken language, or like
Mm-hmm.
how to describe a thing, or and like developing that is like where the core game truly lies to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think that has been such a, just like, not only entertaining, but also just kind of like mind expanding in a way, like the ways that we could talk to each other. It's actually been a bit of a surreal experience, right? And I think that it's also, we're in this world where we're so used to and reliant on our cell phones to like instantly talk to one another, and communicate easily over long distances. And that is taken away from you in this game, right? Like if you're playing this game over like a Discord chat, you are playing this game wrong, and I think it's so rare for me to like leave my phone at home and go out into the world and then just be like, hey, let's meet at this place at this time. And then just expect that the other person is going to do that without canceling or something like that. You know what I mean? And this is a game where it was like, oh, all that stuff is possible. Like we could go out into a world. We just have to use our brains a little bit, plan a little bit ahead of time, not be so reliant on technology and whatnot. And I think that was just kind of like a fun little side effect of this game, of me being like, hey, like I feel like I could take some lessons from this game and apply them to my real life. I don't know if you felt the same way about that.
Yeah, a bit. And another thing that struck me is like a lot of the game like intentionally sometimes puts you in situations where you have to like there's like asymmetric communication,
right?
Where like one person can communicate to the other, but the other one can't like communicate back or acknowledge that they received the message. And so there's a lot of like, either you have to like pre-plan that like, okay, this is how we will signal to each other, or you just kind of have to hope for the best a lot of the time.
Sure.
And just figure it out along the way.
Yeah.
And find other ways ad hoc to like communicate back to the other person and hope that they interpret that signal in the way that you intended to mean.
Right. And that happened to us a couple of times. There were definitely times where, I was signaling with either like a flashing light or, with, some
train horn.
Yeah, train horn, something like that. I don't know Morse code. I don't think you know Morse code. But it was certainly like, we didn't really nail down exactly what all these signals were going to mean. And I was just kind of hoping. Like sometimes it was like I was on the train and we were lost. We were separated. And I was like, I'm just going to honk this train horn for a really long time until Cina comes and finds me. But I think you interpreted that as I'm going to wait at this train station until a train eventually comes around, when I had stopped the train completely and was waiting for you to come to me. So that led to some like funny and like somewhat frustrating times as well. But I think that frustration is part of the experience, right? Like every time I got lost in this game, like it was like, oh man, like I've been out by myself in the dark, for, like 3 in-game days, 3 in-game nights at this point, right? And you would think that would be like, oh man, like I'm just gonna like quit. I just don't know what I'm doing. But that was kind of like part of the fun. And it was like a new puzzle. That was like an emergent puzzle that came up just for us, on exactly like how we're going to find each other here without having communicated beforehand. And so I think stuff like that has been really fascinating about this game and has been something that's been really fun. And it's just like brought you and I closer together in our communication styles as well, and like learning that about each other.
Yeah, totally. And you just mentioned night. So the day-night cycle in this game, like, is both frustrating and also like kind of raises the stakes of like trying to get things done quickly, and also like it really makes the times when you're apart that much more
terrifying.
Yeah, exactly. Like, because you get like nighttime, if you don't have a light, it's like pitch black. You can't see where you're going.
Right.
You get stuck a lot, like up against like rocks, and if you're apart, like you're so much more vulnerable to just being completely lost and like not knowing where you are or anything. So like it makes it that much harder to like get to a place where you can communicate to the other person. So a lot of times you just kind of have to wait it out if you get separated and you're without means of communicating back.
Yeah. So. And there's a couple other like features of this game too that like make that even more pronounced. And a lot of that is what you're able to carry on your person, because there are lots of items that can help you see in the dark. There's night vision there's like a night vision camera thing. There are flashlights and these kind of like light up orbs that you can carry around. But then, there's also, these collectibles that you have to pick up and take to your base. And then there's also walkie-talkies. And so it kind of becomes what am I going to take with me on this particular expedition, right? And I think that that's even more pronounced because it was just you and I playing the game. Right. Like, and that's something we should probably talk about, is that this game has like 3 scalable modes based on how many people are playing. Right. Like if you are playing the version with just 2 or more players, then you click that. Then there's a 3 or more players and a 4 or more players level as well. And all of the puzzles do change based on how many players are in the game at a certain time, or which one of those settings that you pick at the beginning. And I think, if you're playing with a team of like 6 or 7 people, you guys can all be out in a caravan, all having all the items that you need at night. At least as long as one person has them, you're going to be fine. But when it's just the 2 of us, we really had to make some difficult decisions on like, okay, we're going to have to split up here. It's going to be night. One of us is going to need a flashlight. The other person's probably going to have to do without a flashlight because they have to carry the bauble all the way from one place to this other place. We're going to meet in the middle, right? And so it's like every time we would approach a new puzzle, we would have to kind of, regroup, figure out a new way that we're going to do it based on what we have, where I think some of that is not necessarily as much of an issue with a bigger crew. I know most of the game we played 2-player, but we did play a little bit 3-player at the beginning. Did you see a big difference in like the styles of gameplay when you're playing with smaller teams or with bigger teams?
Given that we only played with 3 people rather than 2, and we were still pretty early game, I think, we didn't really, I mean, there was a little bit where like, Josh would like run away with like a walkie-talkie, and then the other person could have like a walkie-talkie in their hand, and then also the other person that they're with can like carry the bauble. So it's a bit easier. Yeah, I don't know. I'm curious to see how it would play with like 10 or 12 people. I wonder like what the kind of ideal number of people to play with that like both makes it easy to there's like not too much chaos, but like there's enough extra hands and enough extra people to like make it more efficient to play.
Right. I think it obviously becomes a little bit more chaotic the more people there are. I feel like it becomes more friend slop the more people are in the game, if that makes sense. And if you're not familiar with friend slop, listener, friend slop is kind of a new recent genre of game, something like Lethal Company or Peak is, arguably friend slop as well. I feel like a lot of these games actually came out after Big Walk was already in development and announced, right? And so, it's weird. Like Big Walk doesn't really feel like a friend slop game at all. Like it's way more about communication. It's way more about puzzle solving. Again, I feel like it has more in common with Myst than it does with something like Lethal Company, right? But it's just the more people you have in there, the more chaotic it is, the more cooks there are in the kitchen, like the more people are having crosstalk and figuring out what to do. And then at the same time, also, if you've got 12 people, I mean, you could split 2 groups of 6 up and basically beat this game really, really fast that way, based on the amount of stuff you can carry at once and just like doing multiple puzzles at the same time, for instance, I was watching, I think it was Northern Lions videos that he's had of him playing Big Walk. And, he went into that one room. And I'll spoil this one because I think people have been talking about this one quite a bit online. But it's like, there's like one room that you can go into where the puzzle is literally you just sit there for 5 minutes, right? And you're in there with a group of people and the door closes and you have to like just sit there with nothing to do for 5 minutes, where the only thing that you can really do is just talk, right? And it's kind of forcing you to chat with the people that you're playing with, right? And so in the video I was watching, the people that weren't in that room had no fucking idea they were in there because it cuts off all communication outside. You can't use your walkies or anything like that. And so the other people just thought they had disconnected from the game and just kept playing through and defeating other challenges and whatnot, right? As they were doing that. So I think there's a lot more of that if you're playing with more people, certainly. But yeah, as we said as well, the puzzles themselves change, a lot of times when it would just be you and I communicating with each other in other puzzles, it'll be like, hey, this person needs to communicate with this person. And then they need to pass that down a line of people in order to get the information where it needs to go. Kind of stuff like that. You know what I mean? Which I think is pretty cool that they were able to game test this with this number of people, and you can see that in the credits. Yeah, as far as like my personal experience, when I first played this game, it was like the day it came out, which was August 4th. It was like the day before my birthday, so I ended up getting this game for myself as a birthday present. I got it over on Steam, and we got a bunch of Switch heads together and a few of Jeremy's friends as well. We had a 7-person team, and it was very fun playing with that amount of people. We were all trying to figure stuff out as we were going. We were kind of also just intrinsically finding ourselves devolving into factions and whatnot. A few of the people had painted themselves entirely red, so you couldn't tell them apart. So they were the Reds. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, here come the fucking Reds. You know what I mean? And so like that was really fun seeing how that played out. But then soon after, we quickly realized that the hardest puzzle in this game is scheduling, right? I think a lot of people have not played this game as much as you and I have, or have beaten it. I think on Steam, only like 1.3% of players have the complete the game 100% achievement that we have, because I think a lot of people are playing in bigger groups and just don't have the time to get everybody together, because this is like a 30-hour game, right? I think we put about 30 hours into this from just our playthrough here. And you really, to get the best experience out of this, need to play with the same group every single time all the way through, right? And so I think that was part of why we were playing it like a job. It's like, we need to do this before I leave the country, right? What was your experience with some of that and the length of the game? And do you think it's like a good design decision to have it be such a like singular experience and not something that's a little bit more roguelike-y or kind of off on its own thing?
For sure. I actually really appreciate that they took that stance, because it's such a unique experience. There's no other game I know that's really like this, where it's like you pick your like little Big Walk family kind of at the beginning of your playthrough, and then you're all kind of making a commitment to play through the game together. So yeah, I think it's really cool.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that they did that. And I'm glad that they like didn't really make any compromises to placate people who wanted to just dip in and dip out. Like on their website, on their FAQ, they like state like, no, this is how we intend you to play the game, like from start to finish with the same group of people.
Right.
There's no lobby, there's no matchmaking or anything like that. And that's very intentional. And I think that's cool.
Yeah, I think it's great as well. And there's definitely ways that you can find friends, right? I think I've heard some people being like, "Well, I don't have any friends. Like, how can I enjoy this game?" And it's like, go to the Discord, right? I mean, I've seen a lot of people finding emergent groups to play with just from going online and doing stuff like that. And so I think that's pretty cool. But yes, I will say, when the group kind of disbanded, when the fellowship disbanded, the 7 people that we had playing before, I was like a little disappointed, but then it was like realizing like, oh, you and I, we're both kind of on our own schedules right now. Like we don't have to work during the days. We can take time whenever we want and really make our schedules work as best as possible. It just ended up being a completely different sort of experience with you and I. I feel like it was a lot more measured. It was a lot more calm. We were both like very much using our brains and not just like running, feet first into something. Way less trolling between the two of us than we would see when I was playing
trolling.
With the group. There was some trolling, absolutely. Not as bad as that Northern Lion thing I saw when they were in the 5-minute room. It was when I had like 1 second left. He opened the door, so they had to do another 5 minutes, which was unfortunately we did not do that. But yeah, what do you think? Just about. It as a quieter sort of like more personal experience with just 2 players. Like, what was your takeaway from that?
Yeah, I thought it was great actually. Like it allowed us in a way that I don't think we would have if it was a larger group. It allowed us, you and I, to like more strongly and more efficiently develop like a language together and like a set of kind of, and it wasn't always necessarily like something we said up front and like said out loud. A lot of it was just kind of developed
like an emergent sort of languages.
Yes, exactly. That's what I mean to say. Whereas I don't think that would have really happened if it was like a group of 6 people where like you might develop a language with like one person, or like you might kind of be more in sync with one person, and then that wouldn't really translate to the rest of the group, or little pockets of that would happen within the cluster of 6 people or whatever. And it would not really coalesce up to like the whole group kind of staying in sync. So yeah, that it was just the 2 of us playing, I think made everything like our language was able to be a lot more consistent and yeah, and sort of refine itself over time. Like we would like come up with more efficient ways of communicating certain ideas.
Yeah, some of those I want to hold
time.
for the spoiler section, because there were some really interesting puzzle solutions that required some out of the box thinking for sure. But no, I know what you're talking about, and I feel the same way. And I feel also, and this is again something we'll expand on in the spoiler section here shortly, but it's like it also felt a little bit more emotionally impactful as well, a bit, right? Because I'm just kind of like focusing on you alone as my companion for this like walk that we went on, this walkabout, mate. It was very much like by the time the game ended, it was like, oh, this is kind of an emotional, this is like hitting me in ways that I was not anticipating, right? Beyond just like, oh, this is like a fun game. It's like, oh, like I really feel like I grew with this person, you know what I mean? And like had this experience like with you specifically, right? Also, it made me address things about myself that I don't know that I was necessarily ready to address. Like I think like towards the end, I was like, was I too bossy when we were playing this game? And now I think we need to come clean on the podcast. Was I officially too bossy when playing this game?
I mean, you did take charge a number of times, but
yeah,
it was good.
Yeah,
I made it through.
It's our dom sub relationship. No, that's not true. Maybe real quick before we move into spoilers, let's talk a little bit just about some of like the visuals of the game and the music and kind of the mise en scène, if you want to call it that. Visuals have this really great style. I mean, it's not a super taxing game necessarily. I think it's not super well optimized on everything. I know Nintendo Switch 2 has quite a bit of performance issues, and I'm sure you also ran into some performance issues on Mac. But you know, it's a very kind of like hyper realistic setting for the most part, with these kind of interspersed puzzle areas that are very primary color focused, so they stand out amongst like the reality of the you know, the kind of environs that you are exploring. And then obviously the characters themselves are these very simplistic, you know, sort of almost insect looking characters, and I think that's also to better stand out against some of the backgrounds. But what would you say were some of your takeaways from like the visuals and the aesthetic of this game?
Yeah, I thought it was great. I thought the game has a great art style, very consistent art style. Just very simple, like you're saying, like very simple, geometric, primary color based, like huts or buildings, almost like Nordic inspired architecture, kind of juxtaposed with like this somewhat realistic environment and like kind of beautiful sunsets and sunrises. It's actually kind of a pretty game.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the way it plays with light is really fascinating as well, you know, because you, again, like we talked about, a lot of this game, you're playing in like the in-game nighttime, right? And so, you know, during that time, you know, if you're trying to look at your, you know, your companion, you can only see their like glowing eye. You know what I mean? Like in the darkness, right? But then when you're using your flashlight, you know, and so, or someone else is using a flashlight in particular, you see these cast shadows that are sometimes also used for puzzles, you know, like being able to, you know, do sort of shadow puppets as you're going, or, you know, the way that light would bounce around as you're holding one of the orbs that better illuminates an area is not only moody, but it's functional as well, right? And so I think that was something that was really important for them to do. It's like, I don't think that you could play this game without shadows, right? I mean, maybe I suppose you could, but it certainly would be a bit of a, you know, held back experience if you were doing that. And then, yeah, like you said, there were lots of moments that were just kind of breathtaking, you know, like we'd be at the top of a mountain and watch the sun come up and it's like, wow, this is like really gorgeous. And then I look over to you and you're like this weird little ball alien guy. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I was expecting, for some reason, I was so brought into the realism that I was expecting to see just like Cina sitting next to me at that point. You know what I mean? And so that was kind of fun for me. What do you think about like the sound design and the music as well? Because I think that's a huge part of this game too.
Yes, I will say. Okay, so PSA for anybody out there. So for the first half of our playthrough, I was playing this game with a pair of Bluetooth headphones that have a built-in microphone. And so whenever I was using the Bluetooth microphone, the like audio quality of the headphones, like the audio output that I was hearing, would get downgraded.
Like it was like a cell phone call or something.
Yes, exactly. It would get downgraded to mono, and like 16 kilohertz. So like the quality went way down. But do not play this game in mono.
It is actually unplayable, kind of.
Yeah, exactly. And so like I was always complaining. I was like, David, I can't hear you unless I'm looking directly at you. That's because the way that the like 3D spatial audio works is like through like phase cancellation or whatever. And so like if my head was turned to the side, the left and the right audio tracks would be like out of phase, and they'd literally cancel each other out. So yeah, make sure that you're playing this game in stereo. If you have if you're using a microphone that's like in your Bluetooth headphones, change to a different microphone so that you get the full audio fidelity in your headphones, because it is very much necessary.
Yeah, there are some puzzles that involve sound. I'm sure that there are ways to solve some of them potentially for people that are hearing impaired or hard of hearing. I'm not exactly sure what some of the accessibility options are as far as that's concerned. I didn't look too deeply into that, but I know like you can, again, you can type. There are also whiteboards that you can find on the island where you can write stuff down and whatnot. For ease of solving some puzzles and for necessity, I would imagine, for some people that are hard of hearing or hearing impaired. But yeah, I think the ideal way to play this is with a microphone and headphones on. And I think having headphones on is very helpful, not only for just making sure that the other person can't hear themselves on their mic. Not really a problem on the Switch version of the game, because Switch 2 has an incredible microphone and it has really great noise suppression and cancellation. But the headphones will also help with that spatial awareness. Sometimes it's like, when we're lost, sometimes I just have to hear leaves rustling in certain directions in order to find you, right? Or like, because when you're far enough away, I can't hear your voice at all. But if, you fire a flare up, I can look over to where I heard the flare going or something like that. And that was hugely helpful. But then just as far as just like the design is concerned, I think that the sound design of this game is just spectacular. I think because it is such an integral part to not only the exploration of this island, but also the solving of a lot of these puzzles. They put a lot of work into capturing real life sounds on walks and whatnot. I watched some behind the scenes videos of the sound designer going around and recording stuff while making this game. So that was really exciting to see. And then also just the music is phenomenal, right? I think, the opening track is so catchy and I love it so much. The kind of bum 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 bum, like the soundtrack to this game is really, really great. And then as you're going as well, there are these areas on the island that we would call radio stations, but they're kind of these like dance areas, right? Where there's music playing all the time and you can kind of just unwind with your friends and have a little dance party. And then you can turn on those radio stations and carry a radio with you and kind of change the music as you're vibing out to the game as you go. And, that also would be involved in some puzzles too. But I think for the most part, those are kind of just chill little areas where you could just enjoy the soundtrack, right? Like, what did you think of that aspect of the game?
I thought it was great. And just to kind of comment on the actual sound design of the game, like I loved it. All the like little wildlife sounds you hear in the background, all the leaves rustling, like it all ends up being very immersive. But yeah, the music also was really great. There's some area in the game where the music actually like really slaps, and I was like, man, I wish this place was real in real life.
Yeah.
You probably know what
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
But yeah, I thought the sound was great. The 3D audio also just like is super clutch for both puzzle solving, for immersion, also just, it works very well.
Yeah. No, I really loved it. I thought that it did a great job of immersing you. And yeah, like I said, it was clear that this game was made by people that love nature. You know what I mean? And like going out into the world and exploring and being off their phones, like I talked about before, right? Like it's very much a game that is built around being out in the world. And as somebody who doesn't like to get bit by bugs and is allergic to the sun, and sometimes I have a bad foot, it's not always like super easy for me to go hike around at a mountain all the time. This was a really great way for me to kind of experience that without having to deal with any of that. You know what I mean? And so I think that was just a really cool experience as well. And I think it added to the immersion, like you said. Super great stuff. And definitely check out the soundtrack if you haven't yet. It's all on Spotify, I believe. But is there anything else you wanted to say in the non-spoiler section before we move on?
I don't think so.
Maybe like a recommend. Would you recommend this game? Is this
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, what would you give it?
Full-throated recommendation.
On the Letterboxd 5-star scale, what would you give this game?
I mean, I would give it like at least a 4, probably 4.5.
Yeah. I give this pretty much a 5 out of 5. I think they did a wonderful job with this. My Letterboxd rating scale is basically, is there anything I would change about this game? And I can't really think of much that I would change about this game. You know, maybe a couple things could be optimized. I think maybe the performance could have been a little better optimized, especially because it's crossplay. But still, it's amazing what they're able to do technologically with crossplay.
Can we talk about what we would change, or like what we would fix or improve?
Yeah. But before we move into spoilers, let's do that.
Yeah. Collision detection, jumping on rocks is a bit rough sometimes. Sometimes you'd get stuck on a rock, or trying to make your way up a mountain would be, I think, probably harder than it should be. But in the grand scheme of things, like, again, not a huge deal, not a game breaker. The game rocks.
Anything else? Is that your main problem? Just collision detection?
Yeah, I mean, that was the main thing that stuck out to me. And again, like you said, like, if it could be optimized a bit more and run like a smooth 60 frames per second on not the best hardware, that would be something that I would change.
I think it's amazing that they were able to do at least what they did. And again, it's like pretty much like a 4 or 5 person team that made this game. You know, obviously there are other people involved, and Panic produced it, House created it. But I think given the small team size, it's pretty remarkable what they've been able to do. And I know that it's been selling insanely well. I wouldn't be surprised if it sold 2 million copies at this point. I know they announced when they sold 1 million after the first weekend, basically. But yeah, I would imagine that it's selling incredibly well. But
well deserved. The only other thing that I will say is I wish that I could erase my memory and play this game again. And have the same first timer experience.
Yeah, I suppose that is a bit of a con, is that there is not really any replayability to this game, right? Because it's like once you know the solutions, that's sort of it. I think you could play the game again with a group, with more people, and try to figure out how to do these puzzles that are kind of redesigned for more people. But I think a lot of them are still going to be basically the same thing, right?
Yeah.
I think maybe there's some excitement that could be had, like kind of forging a new language with another friend or something like that you're playing with. But yeah, certainly is a game that is it's a linear experience in that it has a beginning and end, right? Not so linear in its construction, because you can kind of go anywhere on this open world, but very much so, yes. It is a play once and enjoy while you can, which I think for a $20 game is great. And we need more games like that. Not everything has to be played to infinity, right?
Yep.
Well, I think right there, we will then move into our spoiler section. So if you've been listening this far and have not beaten the game, maybe now is a good time to check out, unless you do not care about spoilers, in which case, feel free to stick around with us right now. But I'll give you guys about 5-10 seconds to click away from the video or podcast here and move on before we get into the spoilers. Let's say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Spoilers. So not only, Cina, have we rolled credits and beaten this game, but we have 100%ed the game as well. Maybe we can talk a little bit about kind of the story and sort of how they wrapped up some of the story and the ending of the game, and some of our thoughts on that. Like, for instance, I think as this game progressed, it got even more like Riven the longer it moved on, right? There's this kind of big, ominous black ball in the distance beyond this huge green wall that separates a huge chunk of the island. And I think getting all of the unlockables in all the towers and, unlocking the train and the ski lift and all that kind of stuff all led to us finally opening the door to this big gate. And then the game just gets really psychedelic and very serious right away. What was some of your experience with that? And what did you think about some of the themes that they were giving us at the ending here?
Yeah, I mean, when you first start the game in the little pavilion that you're in, every time you start a new session or when you first start the game, you're kind of just dropped in this little big room that kind of teaches you how to play the game and what to expect. And there's just kind of sitting in the corner is just like this big black ball, and you're just kind of like, huh, what's that? How do I move that? That's weird. And then as the game progresses, you kind of eventually see a giant one of those way off in the distance. And you're like, huh, okay, what is that? Also, blocking your access to that is a huge green wall, right? And then as you play the game, you approach that green wall and you see that there's like this gate that's kind of right in the middle of it. Then as you get closer to it, like there's like this buzzing sound.
Yeah, your like voice drops quickly as you're talking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like dangerous and ominous and like radioactive or something. And so like you touched on like what is the story of this game? I guess like you and your group are trying to like vanquish this evil energy or like radioactive entity from the island and trying to like cleanse the island of this like ominous energy.
Yeah, I wonder if it has anything to do with, given that this game is very Australian, I have this feeling that the game is sort of like about colonialism. You know what I mean? And it's like the kind of like darkness of like encroaching in on spaces where you're not meant to be. You know what I mean? And it's like, the big black undescript orb is kind of like, I think like almost like a descriptor of that in a way, right? Or like a stand-in for that. And I was trying to figure what the thing that was hanging in the middle was, because there was that like red ball that sort of looked like a bell. You know what I mean? It was like and I don't know exactly what that was meant to symbolize, but did you have any takeaways from that?
I just saw it as like the source of the bad poison energy. I don't know.
Yeah, it was very odd how it went through, but yeah, it's like, as as we went into Mecca and like we got the key that brings us, that opens up the door, I was given a vision that you did not see, right? Like I basically, all of a sudden my eyes, like what did my eyes look like when I was doing that?
I think they were just like kind of spinning around.
They're like spinning around in my sockets. Yeah. I was tripping out. But it's like, I was seeing these visions of like the big black ball, and it was telling us to go past the gate and like go up to it. And I was seeing, inside the ball, I was seeing like all this sort of like stuff that would eventually happen for us in the end game, right? And so, I was just kind of describing that to you as we were going. I don't know if you ever looked up what that looked like in a cutscene. That
I need to,
online or something like that. But it's like, but it was interesting. I was talking to Jeremy yesterday when we went out for his birthday, and he was like, yeah, I got to that point with my friend, and my friend experienced the thing and just said nothing the entire time. What the hell, man?
What a bummer.
But yeah, they were playing with like 4 people, and only one person got the vision in that one as well. Which was
you were like narrating the entire thing in like explicit detail.
I was like, oh my God, like, okay, I see an orb.
Is he doing a bit?
It's floating towards me. But that was really fun. But then, yeah, of course, when you get to the giant ribbon orb at the end, you go inside, and all of your communication, all of your voice chat basically is taken away. So basically for the last few puzzles before you like roll credits in the game, you're in complete silence. And so I think a lot of those little nondescript or nonverbal communication styles that we had created throughout the game, that was really a test of how much that we had put into that up to that point, right? Because
which was awesome.
Yeah,
we
nailed it too. I think.
I know.
Yeah.
It was such a cool way to like end the game and also like truly be like, okay, you guys can communicate, but like, what if you can't verbally communicate at all throughout any of this stuff? Like, are y'all really on the same wavelength? And what a cool way to like kind of elevate all of the challenges that you faced so far, and really put them to the test.
That might be a cool way to replay the game in the future, is just
no audio at all.
Just mute completely. I think that could be kind of like a fun way to play the game for sure, especially if you're playing with more people, right? Because that would then people that had maybe played the game before with different groups coming together without words to have to kind of figure it all out. I think that could be a fun way to do it. I also feel like the speed run for this game would be really fun to watch. Like 100% speed run would actually be pretty cool to witness.
I don't know if you followed any of the speedrunning that's been going on. I saw a couple articles about it, but there's apparently like a glitch that like lets you pick up and put down an item really quickly to like fly.
Yeah, I was trying that. There was like a bit where I was waiting for you at one point in the game, and I was just like testing that out, trying to see if I could do it.
I think I read it only works with like keyboard controls.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was using, and I think like bigger objects too. I was like trying to do it with like a laser pointer, and that was not very helpful. But yeah, so anyway, so you beat the big orb, and then you basically walk through the end, and there's kind of this, you can sit down at the screen and watch the credits, like in game. It's very, what's the word for that? It's diegetic credits, right? As you can play through, and then you kind of make your way to this little door where you basically go to heaven. It's like it tells you like, hey, say goodbye to your friend and reflect on what you've done, because this is the end, right? And so we kind of wave to each other, and it tells you which of you is time to go into the portal to kind of the afterlife or whatever it is after this game is finished. And that was kind of an emotional experience, right? I know like both of us were like kind of feeling it. Do you have any thoughts on kind of just like the end of this game? And maybe we can also talk a little bit about post game as well.
Yeah. Before I get into that, I want to just briefly mention, like, once you get through the gate, the big green wall, and you're headed towards the orb, there's nothing. And it's a long walk. And it's just completely barren. And I thought that was cool.
Yeah, at first I was kind of like, almost like frustrated. I was like, oh man, there's all this open space and they're doing nothing with it, right? But it was thematic, right? It was like, it was almost like that big orb had sucked all the life out of that side of the island.
Yeah. That's like when I kind of liken it to like some sort of like radioactive energy. Like that is like sucking the life force out of like the island. And you can see that by the fact that one, they've built this wall to like cordon off that the living life from the rest of the island that has been kind of sucked dry.
I mean, you can also see it again as like the invasion of like Western culture, right, and society, right. And maybe I'm reading a bit too much into this, but it's like at the end of the credits, they thank the like indigenous people like of the land that they currently occupy in Australia, right. And so I think that like to me it was like all the puzzles and that are on like the side that isn't cordoned off, like in the like kind of uncontrolled nature area, that feels like, more like Aboriginal culture. And then you get into the area beyond the wall that's like, hey, no one's allowed back here unless you're like part of our club or whatever. And it's just this big, nondescript orb that is all samey, and there's no real communication there. Like that, like you had in the rest of the game, and you're kind of like much more, having to abide by the rules of this culture or whatever that you've created. And so to me, it was definitely giving me vibes of that. Maybe I'm reading a bit too much into that, but hopefully one of the developers intended something like that.
Back to your question. How did I like feel about the end of the game? And just, emotionally, like, I agree. Like it was like kind of touching. Just like these moments of reflection that the game kind of nudges you towards. And also I was genuinely sad because one, like we wouldn't have like this opportunity to hang out with each other as much, like in game, and just like do like collaborate on solving these puzzles, which was a lot of fun. I just didn't want the game to end. And so like part of me was sad at like the experience kind of reaching its point of finality.
No, I felt the same way. And fortunately though, it gives you a little card at the end that's like, you've beaten the game, but there's still more to explore. Take a little break, and if you ever feel like coming back, there'll be more for you to do. And we did that. And it was over the next few days. We went and completed the post game. And I think once you make to the end, basically this room opens up where you can deposit 15 of those baubles, right? And so basically all of the little puzzles that you didn't complete over the main island are there for you to do. I think we had like maybe 8 or so that we hadn't completed yet. And then there were like about 7 or 8 or something. I'm not sure how many there were exactly. New islands or new baubles that opened up kind of on this area of the land that you had not gone to a bunch, or at least we hadn't really gone to by the time we beat the game. That's really only accessible via ski lift, right? And so we went there and did some of those, and a lot of those puzzles were really great. They were like kind of harder versions of some of the other puzzles that we'd done throughout the time. So it was fun using our knowledge of those that we had already completed, but having to do them in new ways. It was kind of like brain bending a little bit, right? And I really liked the post game for this. It was not super long, but it was probably about 6 hours or so of gameplay that we did after we rolled credits. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, I also think we did them pretty quickly.
Yeah,
we were pretty efficient getting through those.
Yeah, I think playing with just 2 people will also make some of that a little bit more efficient, right?
Yeah. The purple baubles were the expert versions of remixed versions of some of the original regular red bauble puzzles. It was cool. I enjoyed doing those a lot.
Me too. And I like that they're all kind of mostly in the same area, and it's kind of a bit of a trek to go back and forth as you're collecting them. But we got pretty efficient. We would do 3 at a time and then bring them all back at once and then kind of take a break and do the rest the next day or something like that, which was a pretty cool way to do it. And then, of course, when you finish that as well, there's kind of a real true ending of the game, right? Which is much more meta, I think, as you're finishing it. It's very much like, thank you for playing the game. Now really take some time and reflect on specific memories. There's a little area where you can all sit down, you know what I mean? And that, I think, really got me even more than the real, the first ending of the game, right? It was very much oh, this is truly it. There's no more of this game to experience, right? Maybe we can end our discussion here, because I do think we should wrap it up with some of our favorite puzzles and some of our favorite memories, specifically from this game. We brought this up when we were talking, but there was a moment where you literally taught me binary in game in order to solve a puzzle, and that was really great. I mean, I never knew how to do numbers in a binary, a base 2 system. But it really helped us communicate for one of the puzzles in order to get stuff across. And it was just funny, having a lesson in game and learning and then
me pointing at things in game.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And it was wow, okay, I could actually use that information in the future now. You know what I mean? And it made me understand oh yeah, that's why there are 32 and 64-bit systems. It's because of, the base 2 numbering system, right? And so that was really fascinating for me. I really liked that. Did you have any that stood out for you as some of the puzzles that you really enjoyed?
Yeah, some of the puzzles that I liked, I really liked the ones where one of the people has to wear this big orb, this mask, this gold big moon head on top of their head, this helmet. And then the other, they can't see anything except for slight bits of color of light kind of poking through the mask. The other person has to sort of shout directions at them as they try to navigate either an obstacle course or something. Those were fun. Those stick out in my memory.
Yeah, those are cool because it was and it was also, I think we did a pretty good job of being able to have oh, I did one of those and then you did the other one. You know what I mean? We tried to have it to where we were both having similar experiences and not just one-siding it every time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other ones that stood out to you?
The rooms that had a ton of switches on the wall, and we had to sort of develop some system of communicating. Okay, this wall, this cluster of switches.
Yeah, we labeled each one specifically. Yeah,
that was fun. Other than binary one, which ones stand out to you?
Well, I think the one that was one of the hardest ones was the one where there's all these little screens that are showing little dudes' faces popping up and going down.
I thought you were going to mention that one.
Yeah, and each one of them had a different color. And I think when you're playing with multiple people, more than 2 rather, that's a way easier puzzle because people can stand at different areas and count specifically how many times these things popped up. But when it was just us 2, we really had to figure out exactly the angles to stare at to where we could both see them at the same time, because the number of the signal changes every time that you do the puzzle. So it was we had to that one is the only one that I actually had to pull out a pen and paper and actually write down, and make notes on who could see what from what angle in order to complete the puzzle. And that one, I felt very proud after that one. I'm not gonna lie.
In that one specifically, the colors that are on each of the screens. Some of them are like very close to one another, and so like we really had to make sure that we were talking about the exact actual colors.
Yes.
We had to come up with names like crimson and
Daisy,
red and daisy, and pale lemon or something.
Yeah. So that one was really fun. And then I think, one of the very last ones, of the kind of New Game Plus, puzzles, or if you want to call them that, was that puzzle from pretty early in the game where, you get this big heavy ball and you have to take it all the way to this goal. But you can't move when you're holding the ball, so you have to kind of pass it back and forth. That's another one that I think with more people you can kind of have a caravan of people passing the line down and be a lot quicker, but it's just us, right? So I'd pass it to you, have to go around, pass it back. And in the last one, you're all the way on one end of the island and the ball that you have to pick up is on the other fucking side of the island. So we had to like really get creative there. It's like some of the times we were rolling it down hills and then we would take it to a train station and then we like rode with the ball on a train station. We had to pass it off on a moving train as we're going and then taking it back up to the ski lift in order to get all the way over to where the goal is. So that one took us like probably like a half hour or something like that in order to complete. So that was like, I think it's the last puzzle that we did. We were kind of putting it off because we knew it would take fucking forever. And so I think that being the final one actually felt like very much like an accomplishment, having finished the game and beaten that one.
Riding the ski lift with the ball, and then we would like joke around and like pass it back and forth with each other. And then we both instinctively were like, we shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if we dropped it off of that would have been so fucked. Like it would have been really, really hard to continue. But yeah, I don't know. I think this is just a phenomenal game. That's some of our spoiler thoughts there. I mean, there's obviously more that we could say, but I do think that even if you've beaten the game, it's such a personal experience that I think everybody has their own stories like this when they play the game. And even, if you have beaten the base game, but you haven't beaten it 100%, there's kind of still stuff that I don't exactly want to say that I think is best experienced in the game itself, right? And I think that's really the mark of a really good game. And so I just want to give House a huge round of applause for this. I think they really knocked it out of the park. I will be there for whatever they do next. I loved Untitled Goose Game, another visually striking, very unique experience. But I think that this game blows Untitled Goose Game out of the water. I think this is a far better game. I mean, it's a different style of game completely, but I just really think that this is their best game yet, and I can't wait to see what they do. I really hope for some DLC, honestly, for this game, because there is that whole section of the island that they could build up a little bit, or have like an extra island, or just put more puzzles throughout, right? Once the kind of initial hype from this game has died down to get more butts and seats. But anyway, yeah, I love this so much. Anything you want to say at the end here before we toss it to the games we've been playing?
Yeah, I agree with you. I loved Untitled Goose Game, but this game is just like so much more ambitious in scope and idea. Just phenomenal game.
Yeah, really great stuff. Well, what do you think, listener? Have you beaten Big Walk? Are you just early in your gameplay? Did we just spoil the whole ending of the game for you? If so, what's your problem? Why didn't you click away? Please let us know down in the comments of the YouTube video here or somewhere over on social media what you thought about this episode, and we will be sure to shout you out next week. But until then, we're going to take one last small break, and when we come back, we will be talking all about the other games that we've been playing recently. So, I have been playing a few other games recently. I've actually rolled credits on 4 games in the past 2 weeks, which is very rare for me. I do not usually finish games to completion, but I have actually played quite a few lately. One of them was Haste, a game that I've talked about a little bit. I did roll credits on that, and I beat the final boss. Such a good game. Definitely really recommend Haste if you like fast games and you like roguelikes. I had such a good time with that, and I will be going back and playing the endless mode of that as well. Another one of the games that I finished was something that we did not talk about last week, and that is that there is a new fan remake of Donkey Kong Land, the original Donkey Kong Game Boy game. And this has been made basically in Unity, so this is not a ROM hack. This is a full ground-up remake of Donkey Kong Land for the Game Boy, but in the style of Donkey Kong Country for the Super Nintendo. So this is a, straight up, it plays just like it's a Super Nintendo game that came out back in the day. So there's no quality of life improvements. There's no widescreen. There's no rewind or save states or anything like that. So this is a challenging game quite a bit. And I'm somebody who always really wanted to play Donkey Kong Land, but could never really get past the screen crunch and sort of the inherent restrictions that you had when playing this game on like an original brick gray Game Boy back in the day, right? So being able to play this game in this new way is really, really, really awesome. I played this through on my Steam Deck, and I actually just beat it just earlier today before we started recording. So that was really cool. I really recommend checking out the Donkey Kong Land remake, especially if you have access to a computer or something like that, but it'll run on anything. So definitely shout outs there. That was really exciting to see. Another game that I picked up has been on my wish list for a while, and this is something called Fly 2K. And this is really just kind of something to pick up every once in a while that's just sort of aesthetic and fun to play for just a little bit. It's a game where every time you're moving, you're like flapping your wings to go forward. And it's just got this really cool kind of vaporwave look. And I think it was about $3. I got it on sale the other day. Super fun game, and I've been enjoying that one quite a bit as well. And then the last thing I do want to shout out is as I'm preparing to go on this trip, I have been downloading some games for my AYN Thor in order to play, because I don't really want to bring my Steam Deck with me. I know I'll also be bringing my Switch, and I don't want to bring two big systems to Europe. So I will be bringing my Thor, and one of the games that I preloaded was Dusklight. And if you're not familiar, this is a recompiled version of Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. And originally this was made as a native PC port, but there has now been an Android port made of this. And then in addition to that, there's a mod of the Android port that adds a whole bottom screen functionality as well. So basically, you can now play Twilight Princess in 120 frames per second in 1080p on an OLED display with added functionality of like the 3DS, like Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask games, all at the bottom, right? So you can hold stuff in your inventory. There's a map always at the bottom as well. So this really is the definitive way to play Twilight Princess. There's all this crazy mod support. You can add in quality of life improvements. You can add in cheats. You can do all this different kind of stuff. So that's been really cool. I haven't done too much in it. I was just getting it set up so that I can play it on the plane and while I'm on vacation here. But that is going to be a ton of fun to play in the future. And I'm really excited about just the future of some of these recomp projects going forward. We talked a little bit about that Pokemon Gen 1 recomp last episode. And I think that every day something new comes out. And so it's a really exciting time to be a retro gamer and fans doing what Nintendo don't. But Cina, what about you? What have you been playing other than Big Walk?
Aside from Big Walk, I have been playing my first Yakuza game,
Right.
Yakuza / Like a Dragon. I've been playing Yakuza 0. It's been fun. I'm on chapter 4, so probably still pretty early in the game. There's just so many side quests and little mini games and stuff that I keep
Welcome to Like a Dragon, man.
Yeah. Spent so much time just like playing pool and slot cars, and looking forward to learning how to play mahjong and shogi.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I have that ahead of me. Before I got into Yakuza 0, I finally beat Resident Evil Code Veronica, which I had originally played when it first came out on Dreamcast. I had rented it and made it pretty far. I didn't realize just how far I had gotten when I was a kid before I had to give it back. I got like pretty much like right up to the end of the game and had to give it back. And there was like this one little puzzle that was like kind of too clunky for me to do as a child. Like I kept trying to do it, but the tank controls were just like too obtuse for me to be like, this surely can't be how this puzzle is solved. But it was. But yeah, I finally, for anybody who knows, it's where you have to break the little crystal ball underneath a dropping weight. When I was a kid, I would just continually get crushed by the weight. So I was like, there has to be some other way to figure this out.
Yeah.
Nope. That's how you do it. And it's like literally like
Just
probably like
good.
15 minutes from the end of the game.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was very happy to finally beat the game after all these years. It's definitely shown its age. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the remake of Resident Evil Veronica when that comes out.
That's true. So you feel like better prepared for that whenever that comes out now?
Yeah, for sure.
Very cool.
Because I had like very like spotty memories of the original game because it's been so long.
Look at that. We still have time to game, even though we've been walking this whole time, right? Wow, look at us. I'm so proud. But I do think that is going to do it, ladies and gentlemen, for our episode on Big Walk. Cina, thank you so much for joining this week, and thank you for playing through this 30-hour game with me as well.
Always a pleasure.
It was a great time. I feel like we know so much more about each other. Even though we've been friends for a very long time, I feel like I know even more how your brain works after this experience. So thank you very much. And thank you, listener, for indulging us as we went back on some of our memories of the game as well. Definitely check out Big Walk if you can. You will not regret it. Thank you very much to MilkyWay.co for doing our website. Thank you to Corduroy for doing our music. Thanks to all of our wonderful patrons over on Patreon. If you'd like to find me online, I'm pretty much everywhere at Monolith Fiji. And what about you, Cina? Where can people find you online?
You can find me on Blue Sky at Cina, Cina, and pretty much everywhere else at 1000 Hertz, 1000 HZ. Follow me on Letterboxd.
Yeah, follow on Letterboxd. Yeah, we're both cinephiles as well, if you can believe it. But yes, very good. Definitely shoot Cina a follow. If you'd like to find our show on social media, we are at Switch Headz on Blue Sky and Twitter, at Super Switch Headz on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. We have a website that's switchheadz.com, and then we also have a Patreon, as previously mentioned. If you'd like to chuck in a couple bucks, we're certainly not going to stop you. Also, we are on Facebook with a Facebook group and on Discord. We have such a wonderful Discord community. We would love if you would join us over there. Such a great place to discuss the episodes further, to play games with other friends, to talk about news and politics and all that kind of stuff. A very active community full of non-toxic gamers. We would love to have you join us over there as well. If you could, follow us over on social media and like and subscribe on YouTube, as we said before, that would also be very helpful. But I think with all that out of the way, we're pretty much done with the fucking show. So you guys know the drill. Be safe out there. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to one another. Play Big Walk. Also, remember, we're going to be off next week for the podcast, so definitely check out any number of great gaming podcasts out there. Dialogue Tree, my good friend of the show, AV. I know he just put out a Big Walk episode, so if you're looking for more to listen to next week, maybe check that out. But other than that, fuck ice, free Palestine. Love it very much. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.